Hey everybody, welcome to the Multipliers Leadership Podcast. Man, we are so excited to be jumping in today. My heart's desire is to invest into you as a leader and as a follower of Christ. And today, we have our very first two-time
Let's
guest.
go.
That is Nathan Allen. Nathan's going to be joining us. If you haven't had a chance to listen to his episode, his first episode's episode 12. You got to check it out.
So good.
And Nate, you should get an award, a shirt, something. I'm not sure what that should be yet, but I'll just say this before we get started. Nathan is a local missions pastor. He also runs something called Global Outfitters, based out of Northwest Arkansas, but has a global impact. And so, Nathan, man, two-timer, welcome to the Leadership Podcast.
Man, thanks for having me. It's such an honor. I didn't know I was the first repeat offender, so I think that's great.
First repeat offender.
Yeah, I should get a shirt. No, I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Love it.
Well, Nathan, the last time we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about some deep stuff, some really rich stuff, but we talked everything from beekeeping to Price is Right to barbecue. And I've said you're kind of like the Swiss Army knife of fun. There's always something fun you're doing.
That is the truth.
So true. So what is taking up the Enneagram 7 fun side of Nathan right now? Like, there's got to be something cooking right now. What's in your schedule?
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Yeah, I'm passionate about most things. And so anything I learn about, I'm a huge history nerd. I'm always diving deep into new things, different things. Recently been on a pretty serious World War II kick, which I think every guy goes through in life.
That's fair.
But more and more things have bubbled up to me diving back into different World War II stuff. It was a major moment for me. It was probably 2-3 months ago, and my wife, we're at dinner, and she says out of the blue, like, we're always, how's your day, da-da-da. She said, I've always liked World War II. And it was like, whoa,
Okay.
what are you talking about? Who are you? And she's like, is there a World War II movie we could watch or something? And I was like, yes. Like, what do you want? Like, anything. It's just like, is there anything like historical? I was like, well, like one of the goats is like Band of Brothers,
Yeah.
That's fair.
And I was like, she's like, is it true? And I'm like, yeah, it's totally true. You follow a unit from like base camp all through the war. She goes, let's watch it tonight. And I was like, what is happening? Like, who is this woman? And I think, a friend once told me, like, when you grow to love somebody, you start to love the things that they love. She's still trying to win me over to health food, but, like, I think that's a big part of it. And we've been enjoying going to Band of Brothers together. And so it's just having me going deeper about like, okay, so what was that unit and where were they and what was the Battle of the Bulge and the Ardennes Forest and all this other stuff.
Super cool.
I just love diving in deep on almost anything that I find interesting.
You're crossing territory. We're not at that in my relationship. My wife and I, she's not going to be there yet. Maybe over time, but I think we've got a lot to happen for that to take place in my household.
I think a lot of people were praying for our marriage. That had a huge breakthrough in what happened because I can't explain it. So,
I mean, my favorite part of that suit, I've been rewatching it. Funny enough that you bring that up. I've been rewatching this, but my favorite part, and you can find these little clips on YouTube, is the actual World War II men that were there. They give these little pre-interviews before the episode starts.
yeah.
And they are just dripping with wisdom and richness. And it is just, you can't help but just get caught up in this drama. And there's all kinds of takeaways of like how easy life is for men now compared to that season.
Yeah.
Well, so I got to know, and so that we can report back to our wives, did she like it?
Ooh, that's fair.
Yeah, she's loved it so far.
Okay.
It's, I don't even know what watch through it is for me, like 8 or something. I've watched it so many times. And so she's like, now, who is that guy? So like they're struck. And to be honest, getting a date night and getting time to watch where we have freedom and the kids are in bed on time and it's not too late. It's not a weekly affair. And so there's gaps in between, but all in all, she's enjoyed it. And it's been good. It's, I haven't gotten her all the way to like Saving Private Ryan or something else yet, but she's enjoyed it. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
It reminds me of the John Eldridge quote the famous one that says that the desire of every man's heart is to find a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. And man, that's just dead in line. So Nathan, you're killing it. Oh, this life thing. We've got some things to learn from you today. I could already tell.
I love it. Yeah. Nathan, again, man, thanks for jumping on with us. Man, we've known each other now for, I don't know, how long has it been? We're approaching 2 decades.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it was,
I think I first met you when I was probably a senior in college. And so I graduated in 2010. Yeah. We're
is that the year you took Perspectives, or did you take it
It
809?
was a year. It was that. You're right. It was the year before that. You're right. You were coordinating Perspectives, and
That's
I was
right.
in your class. That's right.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I'll
think that
always
was
be,
sophomore, junior year. I think. Yeah. Okay.
Now the students become the
Yeah.
teacher.
that's right. That's right. And yeah, the student already was the teacher at that point. He could have taught the class, I'm
Well,
certain.
I don't know about that, but one
Yeah.
thing's for sure, Josh totally looked like he knew what he was doing, and I learned. I mean, now that I've run the class a few times, it's kind of like I just have to look like I know what I'm doing. I don't actually have to know. Confidence goes a long way, you know.
I had a friend of mine, Jeremy Kubicek, showed me a video the other day, and it just said confidence wins. And it was a dog backing down a bear. Have you seen that video?
I did see that
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just says
It's just
confidence
working
wins.
out. Like, whoa. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he just backs
Right.
up. I'm like, that bear could take that dog out so easy, but confidence wins.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
when I think about you, Nathan, and I think about our history and who you are, and I think about the word missions and all that comes with that. And you've even helped me distinguish what is missions, what is not missions. I think that's a very, very powerful, distinguishing picture. Maybe we can get into that. But what I'd like to ask you, kind of as a kickoff question, here is talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in the church when it comes to missions, both like stateside and kind of global around the world. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? What are new trends, fresh trends, same trends? Just would love to hear you kind of enter into that macro level and help us get an understanding of, what is God doing in the world of missions in 2024?
Yeah, I think missions can mean a lot of things to different people, like you were
Yeah.
referencing. I call them friends. I don't know if they know my name, but some friends of mine wrote a book called "When Everything Is Missions." Danny Spitters and oh my gosh, Madison. I can't remember his last name. Anyway, "When Everything Is Missions," and the goal of the book is like everything over the last probably 50 years or so. Pastors and churches wanting to mobilize their people to actually be living out their influence, right? Being light in their community, being active in the workplace, not just as a job, but no, God has purpose for you. Like really good, noble motivations have started saying, hey, you're a missionary, average American church guy. You're a missionary in your workplace. You're a missionary in your neighborhood.
Right.
That does a really good job to mobilize people to think, I have purpose. I have purpose in my life. I have purpose in the workplace. God, I love Ephesians 2, 8, 9, and 10. 8 and 9 says, it's for by grace we are saved through faith, not through works, but as a gift of God so that no one can boast. We can't brag about what we didn't do. God saved us through grace alone, his favor.
That's right.
But if you keep reading, the next verse says, for we are his workmanship. The word is like handcrafted perfection. Okay.
Yeah.
I like to think of craft brew beer, like we are his handcrafted, specially made thing that he has created us for works for us to do in advance.
Yeah.
So he's rescued us and saved us because he's got plans in future for us. He's got things that he has made us for. And I think just Joseph, like you were saying, that Elders quote, like everyone wants a battle to fight. And like when a man finds his purpose and says, I've got a purpose here, like that's a great and glorious thing. And it's empowering. And so I don't want to disparage pastors and people who said you're a missionary in your workplace, you're a missionary in your neighborhood for their motivations. But the problem is when everything is missions, then what actually is like a biblical definition of missions gets forgotten. And watered down. The purpose of God is that Jesus came to redeem not just you and me, but people from every nation and every language and every ethnicity on the planet. And that is the mandate that Christ has given us. Just a few weeks ago, I was able to talk about World War II. I was able to go to, I had a intern, and a friend of mine who's a college student, and he was worked for us at Global Outfitters. Was a fantastic guy. He was in Air Force ROTC. He's actually joining Space Force, which is incredible.
That's cool.
I've learned so much about Space Force through him that I didn't even know. I thought it was just a thing Trump made up. Like, no, it's a branch of the military. They're all about satellite warfare and stuff. It's crazy. Yeah. It's Connor.
Yeah.
So Connor invited me to his commissioning service. So it was at the Old Fayetteville Airport at the Air Museum. So we're under the shade of a C-130, and they set it up so you're like right underneath the plane. It's so cool. And all these cadets, one by one, stand up and go to the front, and they have a commissioning officer, and it's usually like a retired general, some noble guy who it's an honor thing for him to come and do. And they go and they swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and defend the nation and all these things against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And then the general guy, the guest of honor, says, by the power invested in me through the President of the United States, through the Constitution, I commission you a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force or whatever. It kind of hit me like, that's a commissioning. A commissioning is the delegation of authority. And I got to see it happen in time. Because after he swore that, now he's the lieutenant, he's a second lieutenant in the Air Force or the Space Force. And so he has that authority over other people because it's been given to him. And so you can't talk about missions and not talk about the Great Commission at the end of Matthew. And Jesus is saying, hey, he starts Matthew 28, 18 through 20. He says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. So like Jesus isn't saying, hey, the President of the United States or the Constitution. He says, all the authority in the universe is mine.
Let's go.
Okay, that's huge. He then says, therefore, go and make disciples. The verb go is a participle, to be nerdy English. That means as you're going through life, the verb is make disciples. So that's what every follower of Jesus needs to be doing. That means teaching someone to follow Jesus, to obey his commands, how to pray, how to tell others about Jesus, right? That's everyone. If you're a parent, you need to do that with your kids. If you have influence over other people, you need to be doing that through that. But Jesus gives a modifier. He wants us to make disciples. So what disciples does he want us to make? Did he say make the most disciples? Then we would go where it was easy and fast, right? If he said, I want the biggest, strongest disciples, then we would go to Muscle Beach in California and to CrossFit gyms, and that's who we would make disciples of, right? But who does he say? I want disciples of, the Greek says panta ethnos, meaning of all the nations. Ethne, that Greek word sounds like ethnicity. Jesus is like every ethnic group of the planet. I want disciples following me. How beautiful is that? That Jesus is like, hey, I'm not just going to let it go willy-nilly. Like I specifically want people from everyone. And the Greek word for all, my joke is all. He wants them from everyone, right? And so that is the mission of God. And every follower of Jesus, if we're going to say, hey, we've been commissioned by him, we've been given authority to go do this. And on top of that, he says the Holy Spirit will come upon you with power. Okay, that's awesome. He's going to equip us to do it. Then if we're all going to be obedient to that, we need to then say, what nations don't have disciples? Because if he wants some from every nation, then we need to say, what nations don't have? And that is essentially the mission of God. And so making disciples of your baseball team that you're a coach of, or your neighborhood, or even in your church, those are all good things, and they need to be done. But the mission of God is not just that. It has to include what nations don't have disciples. And how do we prioritize that? Because all the easy places have been reached. You don't have to struggle making disciples in tropical islands or, in Swiss Alps, like all that, or where people are really easy and open. It's these last few that's really hard. And depending on who's counting, there's around 7,000 groups of people that we call unreached people groups, meaning there are little to no Christians of their people group to reach themselves. It's not possible. And of those, again, there's a lot of different ways to count. The world is really big, but about 500 or so are completely unengaged language groups. There's no Bible in their language. There's no missionary trying to reach them. There are no Christians. There are no churches. They can't listen to a Christian leadership podcast or any type of podcast. It's not in their language. So the mission of God is what do we do to fill our role? You know, when President Kennedy in the 60s said, hey, we're going to go to the moon, every American didn't say, well, I guess I got to build a rocket in my backyard, right? That would be ridiculous. There was several 100,000 people involved with the NASA space program to go to the moon and the Apollo space missions. But, you know, you can count all the astronauts on your fingers and toes, right?
Mm-hmm.
There weren't that many people, but everyone had a role. And some people were supply people. Some people were monitoring their life signs of all the astronauts. Some people were just number cruncher engineers doing math, pre-computer, figuring out rocket trajectories and doing trigonometry and all sorts of stuff I don't understand. Everyone had their role. There were nutritionists, right? You know, what does food look like in space? What do they need to eat? You know, I have trouble with my daily fiber on Earth. What does that look like on space, right? There's so many challenges. And every single person had their role. And so when it comes to the mission of God to make disciples of every nation, it is silly to think, I guess, Nathan, I got to pack up and move to China. No, some people are called to do, some people need to do, but not all of us. We all have different roles.
Nathan, let me just ask a clarifying question, and you can keep expounding on this bigger picture here. Are you saying the premier question that followers of Jesus should be asking ourselves is, how do I use my skill set and what God's given me to add value to the mission of God? Would that be a fair question, or would you reword that?
Yeah. I think, you know, one of my mentors always says, no one has the spiritual gift of taking out the garbage.
Sure.
You know, in a couple of weeks at New Heights, we're gonna preach through Jesus washing the disciples' feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jesus did it. He says, as an example for you to do this to others as well. And he says, blessed is the person who knows that this is the things of God and doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to think like, there's things I'm not gifted at, but sometimes I need to do it because that's what needs to be done.
Right.
But you know what? I'm really in my sweet spot when I'm doing what I'm good at and I love doing, and it's helping the mission of God.
Mm-hmm.
I am never more fulfilled than when I'm telling history stories about missionaries and people are loving it and laughing and crying. And what's so great, I feel like God made me to do this.
Yep.
I love telling stories. I have a brain to memorize history, and I love getting people fired up, because when you study the biographies of missionaries, you learn that they're not superheroes. They're broken, sinful people just like you and me. And the only difference is they said yes to God wherever, whenever, and God used them in incredible ways. And so, like, I love telling that. When I am most fulfilled in doing what I love cooking barbecue. I smoke meats
You and I both.
often. Okay.
Me too.
I love learning new techniques. I make my own spice rubs. I cut down my own hickory wood for smoking my own barbecue. I'm passionate. Okay.
You're too lumberjack for me. I can't do all that.
That is
I love doing it, but when I cook it for my family, it's great. But when I cook it for like a church event or for a bunch of missionaries, dude, I love it. Especially because wherever the missionaries are around the world, you know, if they're in India, they can't have beef and they're asking for brisket. And they're in the Middle East, they can't have pork and they want pulled pork. And I just love blessing their socks off. So all that to say, when we're using our skills and gifts, and here's what's crazy. I think people, when it comes to missions, just like if I was going to say today, hey, what's a good example? I don't know. If we're needed to communicate with somebody on the other side of the planet, you would not say, well, man, I got to get an animal skin and I gotta tan the hide so that I can then take some ink and write a letter. And then I got to have someone take that around the world. You'd be like, no, dude, just text them. Right.
Right.
But that is the same way we think about missions today. When people think about what missions, they think, I got to get khaki clothes and the weird safari hat, and I got to pack my stuff in a crate and get on a ship and go to Timbuktu.
Stepping on toes over here, all the khaki wearers.
Jesus didn't say, make disciples by doing it this way. He just said, do it. So everyone, the world today is totally different. Missions nerds all the time are talking about how everyone is going to everywhere. You know, 100 years ago, if God said, I want you to reach Afghans, that meant you had to pack up your stuff, move around the world to Afghanistan. Well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? Because of the fall of Afghanistan and the United States bases and the people who assisted us there, there's between, last I heard, between 100,000 to 300,000 Afghans in the United States.
Yep.
There are over 300 Afghan families in Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the world is totally different. It's not, the mission has not changed, but missions has changed.
Yeah.
So what we do and how we do it is different. And so it's different for every person, and people have different roles. And so, Josh, to go back to your question,
Mm-hmm.
does every person need to look about that? The answer is yes. But I think where people are going to go is, well, if I'm going to have to think about how to strategically live my life and do that for the mission of God, they're probably thinking, quit my job, move somewhere else, learn a new skill, learn a new language. But that's not the case today. In fact, there's a brand new ministry. I have a sticker right here on my laptop called Switchboard.
Yeah. I remember you sharing that. Yeah.
Switchboard's entire
Super cool.
program is to get people and their skills connected with the kingdom of God where those skills are needed. And so there's so many ways that people can jump in and serve the mission of God. If you love coffee, if you're a coffee nerd, there are missionaries who work in regions where there are coffee plantations and coffee shops and they need help. Or if you're a business guy or you're an accounting guy, there are businesses and corporations that need, literally, there's a guy, and this would be a good transition to talk about the conference, but there's a young guy named Will, who works for an international accounting firm. And they said, hey, we need someone to move to our office in Mumbai to take over for 6 months of this project because they're taking over some new things and we need someone with skill sets from the U.S. to go there. And he's like the first to raise his hand. He's like, yes, that's awesome. And so then he starts praying, while I'm there, like an expense paid trip to all, they're paying to put him up at a fancy hotel. He's doing accounting work, which sounds like hell to me.
Like
but,
where I want to go. Yeah.
But that's his gifts, and that's what he's going to do. And his company's flying him there. They're going to put him in a hotel. He's got weekends off, all this other stuff. And so he starts thinking, man, it would be awesome if I could actually use my time there in a strategic way,
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts praying, God, would you help me find people that are doing missions work in India or who work with people in India and how I can help them? And so he goes to NWA for the Nations, our conference, and he starts asking God, would you help me find somebody who's doing this? And so there's a big ministry fair with, it's like a big bazaar. There's people giving away stuff and there's all these organizations and all sorts of cool things. And he's going around asking people, hey, do you work in India? Do you know people who work in India? And he goes up to this booth and says, do you guys have people at your organization that work in India? And they said, yeah, we work in India. He says, no way. Where do you work? They said, oh, we work in Mumbai. And he says, I'm going to Mumbai. They're like, no way. Where do you live? They were 1 block away. They lived one block away from each other. And when I think God cares about this so much, he's so passionate about reaching all the nations that when you say, man, God, help me find my role. What can I do? He's like, man, not only am I going to answer that prayer, I'm going to take you there, all expense paid. They're going to be 1 block away. You got people who can help you and coach you. Like, God is way more than willing to bless our socks off and helping him accomplish what he wants. And the real crazy thing about missions, this is the crazy thing that blows my mind. Why would God use us at all?
Right. Yeah.
If I were the God of the universe, I would say, I've saved you and rescued you. Now sit back and watch me.
Angels. I'm going to do it myself.
Do it.
Yeah.
That's right. It's like when my daughter Betty comes into the kitchen and says, hey, Dad, can I help cook dinner? I cook almost all the meals in our house. Okay. I'm a huge foodie. I love cooking. When my daughter comes in and says, Dad, can you help me cook? I don't say, no. You're going to make a mess. You're going to spill everything. It's going to take twice as many eggs because you're going to drop them on the floor. You're going to get that sharp knife. You're going to cut yourself. We're going to have to go to the ER. Dinner's going to be burnt. It's going to take longer. It's going to be more expensive. I don't say that at all. What do I say? Yes, I love you. I would love to help you. For Father's Day, they wrote this, my wife interviewed our kids, and of course they had really funny answers. And my daughter, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be a chef because my dad loved to cook. And so it's just so honoring to hear that she would want to do that because she loves me, right? And I love her and I want to help her. But the God of the universe cares about this so much that he knows we're going to mess it up. Christians are sinful, messy, people.
Yeah.
We're going to do everything wrong. We're going to mistranslate stuff. We're going to say the wrong thing. It's going to be more expensive. It's going to take way longer, but God does it because he's a good dad and he wants to work with his kids. And so there's nothing more wonderful in the universe to be used by God for what he wants to accomplish.
Amen.
And so the fact that he uses us is just utterly mind-blowing. And so it's just my passion to help people find their role in that. Because, when I first started doing this job, this July, next week makes 10 years. I've been working here. And, I was like, dude, if you're not packing your bags and moving to the ends of the earth, you're wrong. Like you're a disobedient person who doesn't love Jesus. And man, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Everyone has a different role. It's different for everyone. And God wants to help it. Most people don't know go overseas. They're going to be horrible. Okay. But that doesn't mean they're not involved. Because like I said, 300 Afghan families in Northwest Arkansas. I know of little to no serious efforts of people in Northwest Arkansas making a concerted effort to reach those people. Not one church. Now, that's not saying God's not doing something or there aren't individuals. But I've heard of no group saying, we're going to target them. We know the apartment complex. We're going to have meals. We're going to reach out to them. We're going to do English classes for them. We're going to reach these Afghans for the Lord because he loves them and he wants them to know him. I know of no effort in that. So my joy and my excitement is helping people say, you can do this. What's your role? How can you jump in? How can I help you find that?
Well, Nathan, there's a lot that was there. I just wish you were more excited and passionate about something.
Right.
As I listen and as we listen, it's evident the passion that you have for the gospel, the passion that you have for missions, and I hope it inspires each one of us. And I really, as I think about even what I would consider the gap in even the American church of like the desire to engage in missions, or maybe it's kind of like leftover. And this isn't to bag the American church. It's just to highlight like that's the reality. Sometimes it's kind of a second thought as opposed to our own first things. I had to think that there's seeing that gap. That's probably part of the start or why you started NWA for the Nations. And so I would love for you to take us a little bit back to the beginning. For sake of time, we don't have to spend a ton of time at the beginning part of it, but of how NWA for the Nation started and then what did it really take to get it off the ground so that way we could experience what we're experiencing year after year now. And so I'd love for you to just kind of expound on that a little bit of how it started and what it took to get NWA for the Nations off the ground when the momentum wasn't necessarily there at the beginning.
Yeah. It started with a college student. There's a college student who was being mentored, discipled by one of our staff. And she applied to go overseas to India and with one organization. And it was the organization she knew. And she didn't get accepted. And I don't know the reason why, but she just didn't get accepted to go to India. And so she told our staff gal, well, I guess I'm not called to mission. And she's like, wait a minute, like you want to go, you feel like God's called you to go, but this org said no. So now you think I'm done. She's like, there's like hundreds of organizations in India and they would all love to have you. And this college student said, yeah, but I don't know any of them. I thought that was ridiculous when I first heard it. But I think for a lot of people, especially Gen Z, younger people, the burden and the risk of going with someone they don't know is a big enough barrier to them to equate their role in God's kingdom and a calling to the nations. And so we realized, well, then let's get a situation together where you can meet some awesome people and see that they're really cool and they would love to have you and that, they're worth going with. And so, on top of that, I think there's like this first love syndrome in missions. It's like the first trip, the first brochure, the first experience they have. They're like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life and there's nothing else I care about. It's like, no, there's so many other things you could do or other people you could go with. Most people think about ministries and missions organizations. So I don't know. It's not rational. If you were getting a job, a career, you would apply at a bunch of different places. And then how would you choose the job? You would evaluate everything, right? Company culture, salary package, time off, vacation, etc., all these other things. But people don't ask those questions when it comes to ministries and missions organizations. They just think, well, this is the one. That's it. There's no other option. And so we were like, let's just bring some quality organizations in. Let's help them meet them. And so we did a one-off event, and we were getting head count for pizza, and it got up to 75. And so we were like, this is scratching an itch. This is a huge opportunity. And so we were going to do it again the next year. And at the same time, I'd become friends with some other missions pastors in Northwest Arkansas, Brian Pope of Fellowship and some other guys. And we realized that he and I started working really well together because we had a team overseas that was made up entirely of people from his church and my church. And we were like, we should work together, right? We're doing the same stuff. You're going to visit them. Well, we'll give you some stuff to go take them, like let's work together. And we developed this sweet relationship, and we're like, why don't we have this with all the other churches here? We're all literally doing the same thing, trying to reach the world for Jesus. Why aren't we working together? And so that developed in it's turned into like a biannual, or, if I'm living the dream, it'd be a once a quarter, but we try to get everyone together for a luncheon and just, swap ideas, talk about what we're doing. How can we help partner each other? And so that blossomed into, with the college student, they're like, let's just do a conference. Let's just have the most loudest, most fun, incredible experience in Northwest Arkansas, that if you are excited about missions or God's kingdom, or in whatever way, we want to help get you connected or find your place in God's plan. And so 7 years later, it has blown up. And even the first year, we were blown away. We had people from year one, OSU, Stillwater, Oklahoma. We had people from Springfield, Missouri. We had people from Little Rock. We had people from Memphis. And we're like, man, this is something people want. And so it's gone every year. It's been more effective. About 3 or 4 years ago, we had a huge development that we kind of realized something. One of the most important aspects of missions today globally, I'll have to lay out this plan a little bit, is what we call business as missions. Most of the hardest reached places in the world, they don't want missionaries.
Yep.
They don't want Christians to come and they think convert their people or cause a bunch of problems. But you know what they do want? They want their economies to grow. And they want engineers who are great with infrastructure. And they want medical professionals that can help train other people. And they want professors and educators that can help. And so we can go and give those things to the nations, and the gospel of Jesus can ride the coattails and transform cultures. But to get there, people have to start from a place of understanding the biblical principle that labor is worship.
That's right.
It's straight from the Old Testament that the word in Hebrew for labor is avad. And the word for worship God is avad. Same word. And so we got to people understand that, we got to take them from a place of I hate my job. Their vision is too small. They hate their job. They hate their boss. They're stressed out. We got to take them to a place no, God has purpose for you. And when you do your job and you do it well, you are honoring the Lord. Colossians, it says you need to work like you're working for Jesus. If he was your boss, how would you work? Man, you'd show up on time, you'd stay late, you'd have a good attitude, and you would love. And Jesus says that's how you need to work, like you're working for me. So we've got people to be there before you can ever do this at the end of the world, right? If you can ever do this in a developing nation. So our conference realized we need to have a much bigger emphasis just on what people call marketplace ministry. How can I grow in my understanding of my role in my workplace, of how I can be salt and light there, and how I can not just be, okay, I've got work and I don't really like work, but I can share the gospel with my coworkers. That's one level. That's a good level. That's an improvement. Yeah. But it's a much better level to say, no, my business is God's kingdom. My business is for Jesus, and I'm using it to influence society, and I'm going to bless people and care for them and love them like Jesus. And we know these businesses. You see it when you look at Chick-fil-A, or when you look at businesses and corporations that are valuing people. In-N-Out Burger. We just came back from a trip to California. And yeah, they're stealthy. They got Bible verses on the bottom of their cups. They got some sneaky things there, but they pay their employees like crazy. And they're working at a burger joint. And that's why every one of them is smiling and happy and has a great attitude, because they're the business owners who are followers of Jesus are we're going to honor people. We're going to serve good quality food. If you can't tell, I'm a big In-N-Out Burger fan. We're going to serve good food. We're going to take care of our employees. Yeah.
But if they
Today's
want
sponsor
supply,
is if they want to build an office in Northwest Arkansas, that'd be great.
yeah, we'd
That'd
be
be
okay with
great.
it.
But anyway,
We'd be okay with it.
We're in.
but all that to say, because of that, we're realizing this importance. The last several years, that's been probably the fastest growing part of our conference. Tons of business leaders, young professionals, families are coming and realizing we want the conference to be a place where they can get resources, they can get connections. There are trainings, programs, discipleships, internships with businesses that are trying to use their business for good kingdom purposes and do business well, and also honor the Lord with that. And so Saturday morning at our conference, there's a whole several hours of just focused marketplace ministry time. And then there are other breakouts throughout the day that specialize in business missions, business in a foreign country, how to be an entrepreneur in a developing nation, stuff like that. So that's something I'm really excited to see the conference grow.
That's fascinating. I think that both where it started, but also the continual growth is super encouraging to be able to watch. And I think even as I listen to you, Nathan, it gets my mind to thinking when you said, you see one missions agency or go to one place and like, that's the forever. And like, that's what I got to do. Like, that's the role, that's the place, that's a location. And like when I grew up, it almost seemed like, hey, if you go into missions, if you're in that world, it's man, I just got to go and suffer it out, whatever it is. It's got to suffer out. I'm not going to make any money to provide for my family. I've got to suffer out whatever this list of things, no insurance, whatever the list is. But I love even just a reshaping of, and there's a lot that's out there that's engaging the gospel, and the conference is November 8th and 9th. Is that right, Nathan?
Yeah, November 8th and 9th in Fayetteville, Arkansas. It's you can go to nwaforthenations.com. There's a highlight video and all the options, and we're still now nailing down speakers and breakouts, but we're excited for this year and the theme and all the things that are happening.
Can we share the theme, or we have to wait for that?
Sure. Well,
we can wait.
I need to polish it a little more.
All right.
I'm down to like 2 phrases, and I don't know which one we like better. But I even know what the t-shirt's gonna look like. Like we're really close. So
nice.
All right.
Yeah.
All I gotta say is I heard a raw version, I guess, not a polished one, and I'm excited about the potential for the conference. And so whether you're in Northwest Arkansas or even near Northwest Arkansas, we want to make a special trip here just to see what God's doing in the area of missions and across the globe. Highly encourage that you come and to be a part of that. Obviously, Nathan's got a lot of passion for missions and the gospel, but so should we. And, even what I love, Nathan, one of your stories you're talking about when the guy was commissioned for SpaceX, you said one line, you said that he was commissioned. So he was given the authority, so that way he could use it. Right. And scripture talks about how we've been given the authority. We've been literally given the Holy Spirit and sent with authority to be able to declare the gospel and to make disciples. And that's not for a certain elect few, like that's for all of us. And I love having you on, and I love being around you because you always remind us that that's an invitation for every single one of us. And so no matter where you're at when it comes to your engagement with the gospel and sharing it with others or engaging in missions, you can still take a step forward and say, man, God, what else do you have for me here? Because I guarantee you that when we continue to seek the Lord and what he wants to do in us and through us when it comes to engaging in people with the gospel and missions, that there is something that it will do within you because it's part of your calling and part of your purpose. It may look different from your neighbor. It may look different from every single one that's on this call, but he has a calling for you that is undeniable because he's invited you to it. So, Nathan, I know we could talk for a lot longer. For sake of time, we'll wrap today, but I got to say once again, as a friend, thank you. Thank you for being on here. Thank you for how you're aggressively going after this area and in the world with the gospel. And we're just super grateful for the role that you play. So listeners, thanks again for listening. Hey, if you could like, share, comment, and we'd love for you to leave a review. We do read those. It is encouraging when you guys leave a review, and it helps us continue to spread the message. So thanks so much. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.